Solana family, welcome back to the Crypto ZX channel. You guys know exactly what time it is. We're going to be talking about and taking a look at what's happening with Sol right now, and of course what we could be expecting. Today is going to be a very busy day for me because I'm going to be talking about a lot of different projects. Of course, a lot of people want to know, what's happening with the price. What are some next targets to be looking out for? But if you are, well aware of, my channel, you guys follow my other videos, you guys know, this is something we've been talking about. We've been talking about this while a lot of people always neglect some of these prices that we've been talking about. Remember, there's so much going on globally, and that does have an impact on the crypto markets. Friday had a lot of people jumping around. Crypto Twitter was pretty much all over the place saying, oh, you know what, this is the decoupling that we needed. But I indicated in my update that let's not get our hopes up just too fast, because again, it could be manipulation, and you could see this for yourself. And as we are seeing pre-market numbers coming out, you're starting to see uncertainty is still definitely there. But Sol, as far as Solana is concerned, down 11.5% right now. And again, if you're looking at it on a monthly time frame at this point, you are looking at about a 25% drop, and on a yearly perspective, about 40.8%. So you're starting to see, Sol, making its way towards the downside. But let's take a closer look and really understand what is happening right now and how I'm personally taking a look at this. But before we get into any further, though, as always, just a quick disclaimer: anything on this channel is not financial advice. Always do your own due diligence and research when you are investing in crypto. So looking at the price of Sol, guys, $105 right now. $105. Yes, you've heard that correct. Down 5.7% in Bitcoin comparative. Price is currently sitting, of course, at $105, and the valuation $54 billion, and the 24-hour trading volume at about $4.3 billion. I'm going to share my personal thoughts as to how I'm looking at it. I know people are going to call me crazy here, but again, if you follow my channel regularly, you guys know I'm happy about this. I'm literally happy about this retracement. If the market is going to go down, again, we are due for some downside. It might be some choppy levels over the next 6 months, 7, 8 months. Again, you can't really time it, but even if that were to be the case, that is a good thing in my opinion. We do need a little bit of a flush before we start heading towards the upside, and you're starting to see a lot of uncertainty right now. And again, I will be loving this because remember, there's a famous saying: be greedy while others are fearful, be fearful while others are greedy. Right now, as there is insane amount of bloodbath across the board, a lot of uncertainty, I'm looking at some of the projects that I want to be accumulating, and to be quite frank with you, there are a lot of deals right now in my personal opinion. But with that said, that does not mean I'm timing. You cannot time the perfect bottom. No one can, but you can kind of if that dollar cost averaging in is your strategy, then of course that is something that you could be taking advantage of. But we could go more downside. Again, I want to kind of talk about this first, and then we're going to kind of touch base on the price. So the S&P 500 just fell 10% in 2 days. Let that sink in, guys. If you want to put this into perspective, look at this. This only happened 4 times in history: October 1987, November 2008, March 2022, and April of 2025. A lot of bearish momentum coming out right now. And on top of that, look at this. Look at this, Black Monday of 1987, and if you're comparing it to 2025, the bears are getting louder. You can see this for yourself. Very similar pattern playing out. But again, not saying, we are going to see something similar happening to 1987. Maybe we're going to see the printer going burr. But again, we don't know. Maybe this time around is different. You are going to see a major pullback. We are going to see a major crash, before, starting to rebuild the economy. You never know. You never know. And on top of that, look at this, the SEC acknowledging Fidelity Spot, ETF filing. The reason why I'm shedding a little bit of positive light on, this is because of the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty right now. A lot of people are, bearish. So, we need to understand what has been happening. As far as DeFi of Sol goes, of course, 6.25 billion. Again, shouldn't really be a major surprise to any one of you. Obviously, we are going to see the entire DeFi sector and the ecosystem on Sol gonna get impacted when there is so much uncertainty. But look what's happening with ETH, guys. ETH is at 47.1 billion, 47.1 billion in terms of its DeFi. Again, TVL. A lot is happening with Ethereum, and Ethereum is really bearish right now. So is the broader market, let's face it. But Ethereum, there's a lot of people questioning whether or not it's going to, make its way back from here. But again, let me know your personal thoughts down below. I think it will, but we could see more downside. Now, moving forward, look at the dominance index. Dominance index is skyrocketing. Look at this for yourself. Dominance index is skyrocketing. It's pretty much, making its way towards, the February highs that we set for ourselves. A lot of people thought, this would never happen. I've been talking about how we will eventually fill this, wick, and you're starting to see that happening right now. BTC, I want you guys to understand why the next, I would say, hour or so, very important. Bitcoin touched right at the neckline of $77,000. Of course, retesting March levels, which I've been talking to you guys about. And again, if we're not able to, close our daily candle around this 80K range, I think, we could actually retest 73.5. That's the major key support, and I still think that is on the table right now. But with that said, let's take a look at what's happening with Sol and what we could be expecting right now. Solana has had a major rally. One of the best performing assets over the course of the last, I would say, 2 years, without a doubt. But right now, you are starting to see the price retest that key support line once again. Psychological support, of course, you can see this for yourself. We have dropped below the 107, and again, it's very important for us to reclaim back up to this range and a close above here, because I want you guys to put this into perspective. Please put this into perspective. Last time the price was below this key support line dates back to February of 2024, so last year, and then of course last year was a great year for Sol, and right now we're sitting below it. And if we are unable to close this daily candle above this range, I personally think, we could be falling down to the $97 range, quite easily. I personally think that $97 range is the next target to be looking out for. And of course, if that does not hold, down to the likes of 85 is still on the table. Again, some people might think, oh, this is crazy, what's going on? We don't want to see this, but I'm happy about that. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm happy about that because Solana, personally speaking, and again, I'm quite transparent. This is one of the projects I have very close eyes on, especially if it goes lower, which I think it will, depending on what's happening with BTC. If Bitcoin obviously drops down, let's put this into perspective right now. Let's say Bitcoin were to drop down another 6.3% if it were to retest the next major support line at 73K. That's a 6.3% move, and considering the way dominance is moving, the way it's climbing, I would expect it to continue to climb if that were to be the case. So give or take, we're looking at about a 7-8, I would even say 8 to 10% drop from where we currently are. So where does that put Sol? Right at that 96.3. We have a lot of support around that range. So in order for it to reach the 85K range, that would require more of a bigger drop. But if you want to put this into perspective, from that all-time high that we set for ourselves at the beginning of this year, we are down about 64.4%. Yes, guys, you've heard that correct, 64.4%. I want you guys to kind of, look at the previous cycle. We did see from that all-time high a 46.6% drop. Again, a lot of people might think, this is, the end for the the end of the bull market. And again, sometimes, external factors are something that we need to consider. Those are factors, that we cannot control. Could that really be the case? Are we about to see a major stock market crash? We're already starting to see, stock market over the last few weeks, tumbling towards the downside. A lot of analysts, saying this time around is completely different. Are we indeed going to see a major pullback? If so, are we going to see Bitcoin, drop below the 73K range and start retesting, the levels before, Donald Trump was elected? We'll see. There's definitely a high chance of that. And in terms of accumulating assets, I think that opportunity is definitely there for, a lot of people. But very important for us, kind of remain above this key support line over the next few 1.5 hours. If not, I think more downside is in play. Let me know down below what you guys think. We'll see you later in Crypto ZX, and peace out.